arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another. I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Hello, and welcome to the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I'm Vicky.
I'm Rachel.
We're back again.
Hi.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm great.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you were talking to me or to the audience.
It was a general.
I'm answering for them.
But I'm glad
we're
that
great.
you answered.
The world is great. Everything's fine.
You sound like we're fighting.
Everything is fine. I hate you.
It's great.
It's fine. It's good.
It's good.
I hate
It's a
you.
working relationship.
We're never talking again.
Have you gained weight?
No. Oh, God damn. Oh, that cuts. That cuts deep.
It's not true.
It's not.
You look hot.
It might be, but thank you.
Well, it adds to your hot.
Thank you.
Plus 10 charisma.
So yes. If this is your first time listening, a special hello to you.
Hi.
We've got a great show for you today.
Yes.
But first, let's head over to the newsroom.
Fit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad.
So this week, our news comes from Florida.
Florida.
Again. Fort Myers, Florida. So you might have seen this. I just thought it was too funny not to include.
God.
There is a woman, Christy Turman, 37-year-old Christy Turman. She calls Lee County Sheriff's Office to report a crime. She says, "I'm calling you to tell you that I'm stealing this car."
Oh, what?
So she said she was stealing a car from a dealership.
Oh.
And she said she called 911 because she was trying to steal a car that's not, she said, "I'm trying to steal a car that's not legally mine. I'm making a report. I'm reporting this," because she thought that if she reported it, it would make it legal.
What? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God,
She's-
I just killed this guy, but it's okay because I'm telling you about it.
It says deputies say Turman told them she was training in a game of Black Ops to steal a car, but called 911 to make the crime legal. Yeah. So she didn't actually end up stealing the car because she's only facing trespassing charges. But
Oh my God.
that happened.
Okay.
I just
a
want to
lot.
know the rationale. Like, to me, the rationale, the math doesn't math.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
no. I feel like her sentencing should include like a little light school. Like, you have to take a couple classes because like that's a little dumb.
yeah.
That's a little dumb, girl.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a little dumb.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that next time though.
So it's just call the cops first?
Yeah,
and
next
then be
time like I'm speeding, when he comes up, I'm going to be like, I was going super fast.
Yeah.
But I just told you about it, so bye.
Yeah.
And then I drive home.
Bye.
The end.
And this is legal now.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
All right,
No,
we're
just
gonna
kidding.
we're gonna move on to
Don't do that.
Netflix and kill. And this week we are talking about, I think everybody's talking about this, Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult.
Oh my God.
Have you heard about this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is on Netflix. It is a documentary about this alleged cult that is sort of being run by 7M Films, a production company, slash the church that 7M says it's not affiliated with, but it is
Right.
allegedly affiliated
Oh,
with
yeah.
the Shekinah Church.
I'm looking it up on TikTok now. This is exactly the one I thought it was.
Yeah.
My husband, like, who is not that into true crime, like, sent this to me and was like, oh my God, this is really scary.
Yeah.
So it's, like, really getting out there.
So the documentary really kind of centers around the Wilking family and their two daughters who were sort of TikTok dancers together.
Okay.
Miranda Derrick allegedly meets this 7M production thing and sort of gets involved in this Shekinah church and then distance herself from her family. And there's a lot of control aspects and things. In the documentary, they have former members that are being interviewed that were part of this like TikTok dancing thing, as well as people who did not have anything to do with that, but were like members of the Shekinah Church as they transitioned to this production unit.
Was that kind of like to draw people in?
So,
To like attract people? The TikTok dancing?
no, it was to make money. So basically, the Shin, I forget what his first name is. I forget what his first name is, but the guy who runs the church essentially decided to, he saw that there was a market for this kind of online presence.
Well, I mean, TikTok is huge.
Robert Shin is his name.
Okay.
Decides to start this production company, sort of brings these people in that he sees online and gives them things to do that like boosts their audience.
Okay, so he's like a promoter.
They get a cut of it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like a pimp.
I mean,
Essentially.
this is a common thing, like having a production or like talent service like this.
Yeah.
But he also has like all these other businesses that his members of Shekinah Church are working in. He is like the pastor there.
Yeah.
It is this sort of like distance yourself from your family thing. There is probably 60 to 70% of their income going to the church or church related businesses or expenses or whatever. Very
You're
sketchy.
in a cult, call your dad.
I will say, as far as I'm aware, he has not been charged with anything. I haven't quite finished the final episode of this, but they were in the process of, in the documentary, they actually served him papers for a civil lawsuit that they were bringing against him.
Okay.
Before they had done that, he had actually found out they were bringing this, so he like sued them first. So he's suing them for like defamation.
Right.
So there's kind of this back and forth going on, and all the while there are parents trying to like reach out to their kids that are dancing for this production company that don't have anything to have any contact with them. Yeah, it's all very kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Sketchy.
Yeah. Like I said, this all allegedly was happening. Miranda Derrick, who was like kind of so, I mean, they talk to a lot of people, but like that really is like the base for the story is the Wilking family and Miranda Derrick like leaving and not talking to them anymore.
Right. And their like testimony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she has since come out on social media and basically said they are trying to come after me. She's disputing the family's claim. She's saying the documentary is a one-sided story. If I remember correctly, I think she was possibly filing a lawsuit against maybe the documentary team. I don't remember. Don't take
everybody
that for,
going to court.
Yeah. She does say she can't go into too much detail because of legal purposes.
Which could be, I'm sure.
Right. But she basically says that, she's a plaintiff in the defamation lawsuit, but she basically is like, I don't condone any abuse, whatever. There's also allegations of like sexual abuse by Robert Shin and some of it. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Definitely really interesting. I think it's only three or 4 episodes on Netflix.
Short.
The reason why I think this is so interesting is because this is a prime example of a very modern day version of like a classic.
That's what
cult.
I was thinking. So I misinterpreted what the TikTok dances were for, but I kind of immediately thought of, I think it was FLDS who did like, they called it flirty fishing, where they would teach the women to like look really pretty and go and flirt with guys who weren't in the cult and bring them in.
Not the FLDS because they're very conservative.
Yes.
But
I'm doing it wrong. I'm sorry.
No. There's a number of, especially in like the 60s and 70s, there were a number of organizations that were doing that specifically and like the love bombing. Like that's a very classic like cult tactic.
Yeah.
To attract people in. I know what you're talking about. It's one that's based in California.
It was from Children of God.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
That. Sorry, FLDS. Mostly.
Don't.
Never mind. Actually,
Don't.
fuck you
No,
guys.
that might not be true, but y'all. So anyway, it's a very interesting watch.
That is interesting. Like, that's what I mean is like, that's such a classic cult thing. And that's so modern to like use TikTok. That's like, I've probably watched like dancing videos on there. That's so sinister.
And there's also like, I mean, you see this now too, this sort of evolving of gurus and like gurus presence online.
Yes.
That are somewhat harmful. You know,
Right.
people like Teal Swan or Twin Ray or like some of those people.
Yeah.
Their whole thing is like internet based. You know what I mean?
You gotta look into people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little bit of a hippy dippy myself, but you gotta Google it and make sure they're not, you know, a murderer or something.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
my
at
suggestion.
minimum.
Yeah.
At minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check that out. That's Dancing for the Devil on Netflix. Definitely really interesting.
Yeah.
This is that part of the show where we say content may not be appropriate for our listeners. We'll definitely be talking about, I mean, I'll be talking about murder.
Yeah, you'll be talking about murder.
Mine is probably worse.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty tame. There's definitely going to be some mentions of abuse. I'm trying to think of something specific. I think the most specific thing I'm going to be going into is like the act of like branding somebody.
Sure.
Which I understand can be like a specific trigger for people. Well,
Body mutilation.
yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what we're talking about today?
I will. So she's like glaring at me. So
No, that's me. No, that's me like queuing you up. I do a queue up.
no, I'm joking.
I queue you up so
because-
you can hit it out of the park.
No, first time for everything. No, I'm laughing because I wanted to do this case so bad and it's so like mainstream and I was like, this is her podcast and she's super cool and she likes to do the lesser known ones, but literally there's this YouTube channel, I'll link it in the show notes for you guys. They're called Dreading and they're like a crime channel. They do a lot of interrogations, but they do legitimately, like they talk to lawyers, they call people. So they do legitimate, like really good research. And so he has like 3 and 4 hour like deep dives into cases on there. So I definitely recommend checking them out. And I've been on my interrogation kick forever. That's what I've been listening
For like
to.
6 months.
I know.
Yeah.
I just love it. And
Like, let me listen to this interrogation while I go to bed.
I do that on one, and then I play The Sims.
Oh
so
my
I'm like
God,
listening and I'm
yes.
playing The Sims.
Yeah,
That's
I could
what
see that.
do
Instead
with
of
my
like
nights.
podcasts or audiobooks, you're just listening to interrogations.
That's it's on the rotation. It's that and like Chapel Roan.
Oh my
That's just
God.
all I've been listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted an excuse to talk about this case. So I thought,
It's okay.
what is so interesting about this case, and I was thinking about it, and I came up with the topic: super alliteration, horrible hoaxes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So that's our topic.
Okay.
I'm so clever. I think what interested me the most about this case is just like watching the interrogations of this, like the study of human behavior. I've always thought it was so interesting to like when the voiceover is like, this person clearly committed this crime. And then they're like, I didn't do that. I love watching them lie without knowing like what the police know. Like that's interesting.
Sure.
I like watching that. And most of the time, I think a lot of people who commit crimes, a lot of things are like spur of the moment. A lot of people just aren't good at lying. So it's interesting to see like, oh, dude, you're lying real bad.
Why
they know
you
it.
always lying?
Oh my God. Stop
lying.
Demonetized. But the thing that was so fascinating about this case is like this woman has been lying her whole life.
Have you said what case it is?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm
On
wondering
purpose?
yes.
Okay.
I'm wondering if people are going to guess.
We'll see.
Because that's the thing is like even with these like hardened like big guy like murderers, they'll like have super obvious like, you know, they'll be shifting around when they're talking and they're sweating and rubbing their hands. And this woman is lying her face off, like not a single truth, and just sitting there cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
But this is the way that this woman has made her life.
Yeah.
She's lived her whole life dishonestly.
Sure.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. I mean,
I do.
I do.
I'm talking about Sherry Papini.
Papini!
So
crazy.
that's why I was laughing, because it's such a mainstream case.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if she doesn't let me do this, that's
No, it's
totally
fine.
understandable. But I've been listening to, like, literally, I was telling my poor husband about it against his will. And he was like, why don't you talk about it on the podcast? And I was
Yeah.
like, actually, that's a good idea.
Well, and it's funny because when you had messaged me that this is what you were going to be covering, it was like 2 days later that Hulu released that new series, which I was like, I don't want to watch this until after we record.
Right.
Just keep things fresh. But like, I couldn't believe, and that was not on purpose. Like, I
Isn't
could
that
not believe the
crazy?
timing of that. Yeah.
Yeah, you sent me a screenshot.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I was like, I didn't know
excuse me?
that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was planning on doing the same thing, watching it afterwards.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked into that at all.
We'll probably talk about it on one of the future episodes. But
yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, horrible hoaxes. So Sherry Papini disappeared from Redding, California, just a few streets away from the beautiful home that she shared with her 2 young children and her husband, Keith Papini.
Perfect little family.
Yeah, super perfect.
Yes. That
That was kind of the thing. Like, if you're not familiar with this case, which honestly, this is such a big case right now, I feel.
Is it like an anniversary or something? Like, why is it all of a sudden?
I think
coming
because of
back
the
into the
documentary,
mainstream?
because
Yeah,
one
but
of the-
so I will say normally those things come out on like an anniversary
That's
or like
true.
there's something happening in the case or like I was just curious if you knew that there was anything like
No, I think I'm guessing what happened is because before I saw the documentary, like while I was doing all this stuff, I saw that she recently, like I think this year or the year before, had made a statement.
okay.
Like, oh, I'm sorry and stuff. 'Cause
Okay. So maybe it's just as like creeping back into the public consciousness.
yeah. And
okay.
I mean, she only, this case ends like a little sooner than I think you might think,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's a little, well, I don't know. We'll have to
Okay,
watch the
okay.
damn documentary.
Anyway.
I don't know.
Not to take you off track.
No, for real. It's such a weird case.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't seen this case all over social media, like you should look at a picture of her. Like she really is beautiful. Like that's something to be said for. She's blonde, blue-eyed, like her husband's handsome. She has 2 like adorable little blonde children. Their house is beautiful. Like she looked like she had the perfect life.
Yeah.
They didn't
Very
have a ton of money,
picturesque.
but they had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. On November 2nd, 2016, Keith, her husband, arrived home from his job and found no one at
Oh my
home.
God, 2016.
I know.
Okay.
So long ago.
I'm like, well, this is why I'm like, this is probably why. I mean, I remember it happening, but like, y'all, 2016 was a year. Like
Yeah,
that was
it
the
sure
year of
was.
things just like happening back to back to back to back to back,
That's
and
true.
so many things got overshadowed.
That's
this
so
being one
true.
Of them. Yeah,
I remember when it happened.
but that's it.
And that's it, because I remember having to look it up because I was like, did they ever get her back? Did they find her? And
Is
then
she?
I was like,
Is she
oh,
still
shit.
here? Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But like, this is going to sound like a humble brag, but I remember when it first came out, I looked at like, again, 2016. So it was like a BuzzFeed article.
Right.
I looked and I was like, something is not right. I was like, this is a little bit fishy.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone's comments were like so sweet and nice, which is so positive. Everyone was like, I hope they find her. Oh my God, poor
Little
Sherry.
do we know, yeah.
Right. That's not even an issue, you guys.
Yeah. Right.
So he arrives home from his job and there's no one there. Now, by this time, normally Sherry would be like making dinner. She would have already gotten the kids. So here's the thing. I'm a mom. I'm not mom shaming. Sherry was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't like work or anything. And she still had the kids enrolled in daycare.
Yeah.
So she would like take them to daycare for like a lengthy time every day.
Yeah.
I think that's weird. For what? Why would you stay at home and then bring them to daycare? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not shaming anybody, but it is just kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, some parents just want to be able to get things done at the house without having your children around.
And I totally get it for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But like all day.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's just, on its own, and anybody who's watching who's like, hey, I do that. That's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just linking like what happens later.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, all right, it's like something that should be pointed out.
Right,
But
sure.
do what works for
Sure.
you. I love that.
Rachel, yeah, Rachel is also a stay-at-home mom.
I am.
Just so everybody
and I
knows.
also don't work.
yeah.
Despite the backbreaking research I do for this podcast.
This is your job.
It is my job. Yeah. I don't even have dental.
Nope,
That's why my
sorry.
teeth are so
You
fucked
never
up.
will.
That's good because I'd be expensive. My teeth, I come from a long line of hillbillies. My teeth, hi. So he came home from work, nobody there. He eventually found her cell phone because he was texting her, could figure out what was going on. He used the Find My Friend app to track her iPhone and found it abandoned on the side of the road.
Okay.
So it was her phone and her headphones. There was blonde hair wrapped up in the headphones, but the headphones and the phone, you know how you wrap your headphones around your phone when we had headphones with cords?
When we had headphone jacks.
Now, back in the day, our headphones used to be connected with a little piece of wire. And
yes.
You'd wrap it around so they wouldn't get tangled, kids. And they were neatly wrapped around the phone, and the phone was placed. It seemed like it was deliberately placed.
Less yanked out of your ears.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that was kind of weird. So that was one of the first things the police were
weird.
Okay. So he called the daycare and was like, when did Sherry pick up the kids? Because he's like, did she take them to the store or something maybe? And they're like, your children are still here. She never came to pick them up. She went and dropped them off early that morning.
Okay.
And disappeared. And again, I'm not being mean to people who put their kids in daycare. It's a necessary service. We love it. But there's video, surveillance video of her dropping the children off and leaving. And they're very little. They're toddlers at this time. And they're crying and reaching out for her. And she just turns around and walks away. I have a child who is in preschool and he does not care at all when I drop him off. He's like, bye, Mom. Get out of my face. I'm going to go play with my toys. Yeah. But I know it's you have to kind of turn around and leave. But she looks so cold. And again, considering what happens later, that video is so eerie. I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's gross. Sherry had simply vanished into thin air, it seems. 3 weeks later, on Thanksgiving Day, 2016, a bruised and battered Sherry appeared screaming, terrified, with her hands zip-tied together, having been reportedly been freed by her captors at 4:30 that morning. So she was found on the side of Country Road 17 near Interstate 5, about 150 miles south of where she disappeared.
Okay.
So the way that she told it, her captors, who I'm about to go more into, put her into a car, all tied up, zip tied, got out on a random street, pushed her out, said, go, get out of here. And she just ran. So she has this tale, and you can hear all about it in the YouTube video that I'm going to link. She goes into a lot of really weird detail. And it's a weird, they're interviewing her after they pick her up, and it's so, her affect is so weird. Mm-hmm. So she said, and this is again, she's just been released after being held for 3 weeks. They're like, oh my God, what happened to you? How did you get out? And she's like, well, they released me. And then I went to run to one house and it was really dark. And I just got bad vibes. So I was like, I'm not going there. And then I ran to another house and I don't know, there just wasn't anybody there. She's just so casual. And it's just kind of wouldn't you go, wouldn't you be making the most noise possible?
Right.
She runs past several businesses. She hops a fence into a warehouse, runs through the yard, and runs into the highway, into traffic. Cars had to stop to pick her up. And there was a woman who drove past her because she was I thought she was crazy, but then she stopped and called the police.
Yeah.
And you can hear the police phone call, and in the background she's just hysterical. They're trying to ask her questions. Who are you? And she's just screaming.
Yeah.
So she said that she had been forcibly kidnapped by two, in her words, Hispanic women.
Okay.
That they had intercepted her during her normal morning jog, pointed a gun at her. They drove up in this white van, pointed a gun at her, forced her to drop her phone and headphones and get into the van with them.
Okay.
Now she said, because there was hair tangled up in the headphones, she said that she purposefully pulled out her own hair so that they would know that it was hers. So she was always in all of her confessions, she's always kind of trying to portray how clever she is. She's always saying,
look at this thing that I did to help.
Right.
Oof.
In every time she's talking about the abuse from the women, she's like, but I really stayed strong and I did this and I'm so clever.
Okay.
Yeah. So it gets a little
sure.
annoying. She had no choice but to comply, and for the next 3 weeks, she was forced to live in a very small room. She said it looked like a normal house, very small room where she was beaten daily, barely fed, deprived of sunlight and fresh air, only allowed to take 2 or 3 short showers in like the entirety of her 3-week stay. Her hair was forcibly cut,
Okay.
and she was even branded on her left shoulder blade.
Okay.
This case attracted like ginormous media attention.
Oh my God, so
this
much.
was crazy.
So much, yeah.
And again, I like this is gonna sound like a humble brag, like, yeah, of course, whatever. But I remember when it came out, I was like, something is wrong.
Yeah.
This is a weird case. Super,
It was
super
very
weird.
strange.
I remember thinking that when she was talking about her captors, I was like, some of the things that she's saying are like racist. Like, I was like, you know, I understand being angry at your kidnappers, but I'm like, do you really have to say, like, she talked about, like, one of the worst things was I would be in the house with these 2 women who hated me, and they were always speaking Spanish, which is such like this is her words, like an ugly language, and I didn't understand it because I don't speak Spanish. And they were always playing really annoying Spanish programs on TV. And also she would say, like, she wouldn't say Spanish, she would say, like, they spoke Mexican. And I'm like, that's not a language.
So there's definitely like an overtone of
right. It was always
racism.
like the food they cooked was disgusting, and like they were like, what did they feed you? And she's like, oh, I don't know, like whatever Mexicans eat, like rice and beans and stuff. And I'm like, okay, like what are you talking about?
Yo.
Like there's a little bit of a difference.
That's a little sketch.
Like you're gross. So even from the beginning, law enforcement was like, what is going on? This literally doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
And so they were looking into Sherry's background, and they were starting to find that she had a habit of lying and saying things that weren't true. All the time.
Homegirl's a compulsive liar.
Yeah. It like her life story, I'm not going to go too deep into it because she sucks. But is like super interesting. Like, at the time, her marriage to Keith was supposed to be this like big, beautiful thing. And she would always talk about how much she loved him. But on the inside, she was found to have had several affairs. Like lots and lots of affairs. They had separated for a time and had come back together for the children. And now it was going okay. But there was always like some kind of like crazy excuse that she had.
Yeah.
And then friends were saying like, oh, she's saying that it's a good relationship. The other day she said Keith punched her in the face. And like there was an incident where they were at a party, early 2000s, they were playing Nintendo Wii. And she wasn't using the wrist strap properly, idiot. And the like remote like hit her in the eye. And there were all of her friends were at the party and saw her like, oopsie daisy, like, oh no, your poor eye. And she got a black eye, and would tell people who were at the party who saw her hit herself with the remote. She'd be like, Keith punched me.
Oh my God.
He's really abusive. And they were like, Sherry, we saw that happen to you.
See, I feel it's interesting to me because I'm like, if there was maybe like one different gene in her makeup, this could have been like Munchausen's or Munchausen by proxy.
For real.
You know what I mean?
And I kind of
because it's not quite on that level,
Right.
but like,
I think that there's something.
you know, it's
Yeah. That's like I do not like this lady. Sherry, if you're watching, let me say I'm the biggest hater. I do not like this girl. But like I think that there's certainly some kind of mental thing going on.
But just like one different connection somewhere, and
like,
that would have been Munchausen's.
So smart is this shame, because she fooled all these people for so long. It's like, what if you made that into something positive?
Yeah. Instead.
Sherry.
Oh, Papini.
Terrible. So she was able to get away with it for a little while, for a couple of years, for about 6 years. She just kind of like went back to her life. She gave police descriptions of the women and of the house, although she was confused on a lot of details. She was very specific about like the architecture of the room.
Okay.
Like she remembered all of this, like, oh, there's a little crack in the floor, and there's this part of the wall where she said that she was like trying to escape, so she found like a screw and was like digging into the drywall. But it didn't come to anything. Like all of these really, really specific details about the areas in the house where she was allowed to go.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, great, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So they were bringing in even like architectural designers and being like, what kind of room
But
is
also,
this?
like, too specific is a sign of lying.
Correct.
Too.
Well, that's what I thought when I first watched it, I was like, oh, she's just pulling it out of her ass.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like if you've
There's a very thin line between,
Right.
like, not being specific enough
and being too specific.
Yeah, where it's like,
right.
you're lying.
And that's the thing is so many of her details are so vague. And then every so often she'll go really, really in detail. And I'm like, that's just not typical Girly Pop. I would definitely recommend watching the interrogation footage because it is so
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So eventually, because the first one, when they first come in, she's it's like a little funny because she's obviously like her nose had been broken. She'd obviously been beaten. And they had taken her to the hospital right away and reunited her with her husband. And then the police came in just to see if they could talk to her.
Well, and there's other things you have to. They probably, as procedure, do like a rape kit.
Yes,
and
right.
Some of those extra things.
Correct.
When you first get back.
Right. Yeah. And they had to make sure. And she was very combative, reportedly, yelling at the police, screaming because she was just saying over and over that she wanted to see her husband.
Yeah.
I love my husband. I want to see my husband. And was like
Yeah.
swearing at them and like tried to attack some of them, which like for someone who's in shock after being kidnapped is
Sure.
like kind of typical. But there's body cam footage of a lot of that. And it's just interesting how she can just kind of turn it on and off. Like
Yeah.
1 minute she's screaming and the next minute she's like, oh my God, hi, my name's Sherry. It's like, oh, okay, girl.
Oh, Papini.
Papini. Classic Papini.
Classic Papini.
So after about 6 years, things started to catch up with Sherry as more and more people came out. And one of the people who was kind of integral to solving the case is an ex-boyfriend of hers who she was like a guidance counselor at a school for like a little bit when she was like 20. And he like was a student and was 15 and they like dated. Well, like obviously that's not dating, that's assault. But like the interview was a modern interview and it was like, this was her boyfriend and he was 15 and I like had to record it like
Not great.
like rewind it like 7 times. I'm like, don't say that like that's a normal
Nope, not great.
thing.
Not
Like,
great.
that's not her boyfriend, that's her victim. Like I hate when the news
And
does that.
there's still people in the world, in the universe, specifically weird alphas on the internet
For real.
that are like, you should be proud that's guys like scoring this blah 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 blah
that's
blah. I'm like,
horrible.
that's abuse.
It's disgusting.
abuse.
That's we like as a society
Yeah.
need to take that so much more seriously.
Because also, if it was a male teacher and a 15-year-old student, female
Completely.
student, the reaction would be completely different.
Completely
Not saying it's
different.
not warranted,
No,
but like
completely.
we need to have that same reaction for male.
Like that's what shocked me was like it was a
younger
normal. I'm trying to
victims.
think like it was part of the one of the online documentaries that I watched on that Dreading channel, but it was like from a normal news segment where they were like this, and he's like obviously an adult now, but they were like, this guy is a guy from Sherry's past, and he was a teenager and dated this like 21-year-old. And I was like, hold on, excuse me, can we go back to that?
Yep.
Like if I were in the news, every single interview after that, I would be like, alleged like pedophile Sherry
right.
Papini, like that needs to be a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like you are disgusting.
Yeah.
But he said he would go back and say that like apart from the obvious, like she's a gross pedo weirdo, she would lie constantly. She lied to their circle of friends about having a heart condition. They actually called her out on that.
Yeah.
And she lied to him and said, because he was like an avid surfer, because this is California.
Yeah.
And she was like, I also surf. And he'd be like asking her surfer questions and she had no fucking idea.
Yeah.
Like, so it would just be like everything. She said that her parents were really abusive, which has never been substantiated.
Okay.
Every relationship that she would be in, the guy would be really abusive, even when it was like, because it's one of those circles of friends, kind of like ours, where everyone just ended up dating each other.
Sure.
So it's
sure.
like, oh, this is our friend.
Right.
But she's like, oh my God, he is so abusive. And they're like, are you sure? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it was
we
like,
know him.
She
We know-
right.
yeah.
Like horrible. Like
Sure.
obviously you're the common denominator, Miss Girl. But yeah, she eventually got found out because through their close circle of friends, they contacted one of her ex-boyfriends who, when they went to his house, they were like, this kind of feels familiar somehow.
Yeah.
Not really sure how. And he just the boyfriend kind of gets up because he's like super normal, like, yeah, you can come in. Yeah, no problem, whatever. But you can tell he's really nervous. And then he's like, yeah, Sherry was here. Yeah, Sherry was here.
Oh my God. Yeah.
She was with me.
So he really didn't like try to hide it.
No. So he
just kinda like,
said,
"Ooh."
right.
Collar tug.
So awkward. Ockies. I feel conflicted about him, about Steven here, because I think he's a victim in a way, because Sherry is very, very manipulative.
Yeah.
You know, I am not, shocker, you guys, I'm not like a doctor, so I can't diagnose, but I think Sherry, like, definitely narcissism would be like
Sure.
on the diagnostic list.
Sure.
And she is very manipulative, and I do think she manipulated this guy. They found out that she had like a series of burner phones that she had been texting this guy with.
Oh boy.
And like, I think she had accused him of abuse as well after they broke up.
Yeah.
And then like they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and he was going through some of his old stuff and found some of Sherry's old things and was like, it's been long enough that I can send this back to her and it's not going to be awkward.
Yeah.
And he included like his number, like, hey, if you need anything, she's married, she has kids, everything's probably fine.
Right.
Hi,
right.
old friend.
You think it's long enough to be safe.
Yeah, and he wasn't in love with her or anything. He was just like, oh, yep, let me help you out. And she wrote back like, oh, thank God you've contacted me. My husband is like this horrible abuser, and I'm in love with you, and I have to run away from my terrible life and live with you because he's gonna kill me.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, dang. Well, anyway, I hope you got your CDs back.
Yeah, right.
I hope.
I found these booklets, and there's like 600 CDs in here.
Right. Like, here you go. And you're talking about all of this. Like, I did not ask.
Awkward.
So all of his friends said like he would give you the shirt off his back. He's this nice guy. So I think he felt really conflicted.
Yeah.
So they made a plan. She like got 2 burner phones and texted him all of these instructions, which included, because he lived like 9 hours away. Like super far away.
Okay.
So he came to get her.
Still in California though?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then drove back.
Yeah.
Like so much driving for this
Right.
woman like he barely knew. And she also was like, oh, make sure to get me a Starbucks for the way up.
Rude.
So it's
that's
like,
just being greedy.
Yeah, that's super greedy.
It's being greedy.
And it's like, are you that traumatized?
But also there's part of me that's like, wouldn't you think in that like 7-hour, 8-hour drive at some, but like in the middle of that drive, like what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I driving all the way?
That was something that came up a lot.
That's a long time to, especially, I mean, if we're going to get into the legal aspect of things, when you're talking about premeditation and planning, like the fact that you had such a long time between that and the actual event shows some like premeditation and
that
planning.
was brought up a lot in court.
Yeah.
A lot in court.
Not
because
surprised.
It was such a long trip. Like the detectives even said in part of the after they like confront her, which I'm going to talk about, which is hysterical. They when it all like comes to light and they're not like pretending with her anymore, they're talking to her and they're like, we understand, because she says at one point like, I didn't ask for this. She's talking a little out of context because she never truly admits to all of it.
Sure.
But he was like, well, you asked for that. And she's like, I didn't ask for this. And he's like, Sherry, like, I disagree with what you did, but I believe you. I don't think that you thought that all of these news people would care that you maybe wanted to leave your husband.
Sure.
Or maybe teach him a lesson, which is what I think that it was.
Or probably that she was going to be found out at all.
Right.
Like she probably.
So this is okay. Again, am I an expert? No. But am I hyperfixated on watching things for 4 hours? Yes.
Yeah.
And I watched a lot of this case.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. And I think a lot of times when people run away and then it's like, oh, I was kidnapped, but really I just wanted to go and hang out with my boyfriend.
Sure.
Like, I think that does happen.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh no, all of this media attention, they feel like they can't come home.
Yeah.
And I remember that being part of people were like, if she is faking, just wait until afterwards to say anything because she may feel that she can't return.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going on and she should be with her family,
Sure,
which
sure.
is fair. I think that Sherry is different. I think that she did know this would happen.
She wanted it to.
And she wanted it. I think
yeah.
that she likes being infamous. And I think, like, as soon as I saw that, like, she made a recent statement, I was like, okay, Sherry,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, briefly, I'm going to go into my favorite part of the interrogation.
Okay.
So, am I like a big detective, like police fan? No. But I think occasionally they get to have a little bit of goofy fun.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring her into this interrogation and Sherry and Keith still think like that everything's fine.
Okay.
That they haven't been found out. And they're like, guess what?
Keith is the boyfriend, right?
The husband.
The husband.
Who has been by her side this whole time. She's been having alleged like PTSD episodes, been going through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been reportedly like there for her, supporting her.
Okay.
And he's been very like almost kind of annoying to the police because he's always calling them and being like, I found this piece of evidence, or Sherry had a dream and remembered this detail. Let
Yeah.
me tell it to you, which is like very good of him.
Sure,
Like, he's being this
sure.
amazing husband. So he's there to support her.
Okay.
And the detectives are talking to them and they're like, great news. We found the women. We found them. And this is when they have already talked to the man she was staying with.
Okay.
They already have concrete evidence that she was there.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
just his word. They have other people who saw her on the property. They had, because you can't stay somewhere for like 3 weeks and you're this internationally searched for person.
Right. And
like,
no one's going to notice.
And you're bright blonde. Get the hell out of here. Like, come on, girl. Dye your hair. So they already know. So they're talking to her and they're like, yeah, great news. We found the kidnappers. And they take out some like stock photos and they're showing her. And I just wonder like what was going through her head. Probably,
Yeah.
oh, fuck.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
looking
I'm
and she's
sure.
like, oh, the jaw on that one, kind of. And like this one on that one, kind of. I'm not sure. She's being like non-committal. And they're like, okay, well, that's okay. That's not all we have because we found the house that you were kept in. And they're showing her pictures of her boyfriend's house,
Okay.
which is the place that she's been describing.
Right.
That's why she described it so well, is because it is a real place.
Right.
It's just where she had been not confined.
Sure.
So they're showing her, and I'm sure she's like, oh, fuck. But she's like, no, I don't think this is it. And they're like, really? Because it has like every single detail. It has every single one. This is so weird.
Yeah.
This is definitely where you were.
Yeah.
And at this point, they start asking her, like, so do you want your husband in the room? Because you know where we took those pictures.
Yeah.
So we're giving you the option to get him to
Wow.
leave so that we can talk to you alone.
Sure,
And he's
sure.
being like so cool with her, like, yeah, you want me to leave? I mean, I'll leave. He's like, obviously I want to be here for my wife, but like, okay, sure. Like, I'll leave the room. And they're like, well, we'll leave you two alone for a minute. And as soon as they leave, he turns to her and he's like, you better fucking tell them the truth. You
So
have to
he
tell
knew at that point.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that he knew something was fishy, but I think that
But he didn't know what
felt-
specifically.
Right.
Okay.
So the guy who made the YouTube documentaries that I was watching, the Dreading guy, this YouTube guy, he brought forward something that I didn't think of, which is very understandable, that a lot of the time, because what she said, because she couldn't communicate with her supposed kidnappers, obviously because they spoke Spanish, but she said that somehow she knew they were kidnapping her to sell her to a sex trafficking ring. Mm-hmm. And the initial reason that she had freaked out and been rude to police officers was because they had told her that she was going to be sold to a police officer, and all of the police officers were like in on it.
Okay.
So for some, I don't know how that like
Sure,
makes sense at all.
sure.
So whatever.
I mean, weirder things have happened.
Yeah.
Weirder things have happened.
Yeah. No,
But,
totally.
like,
But it was like, okay.
yeah. Did he believe her? Is where we were going with
Right.
this. Yeah.
Right.
Or did he know?
I don't think
At what
so.
point did he know that,
so
like-
thank you. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're welcome.
So
Just a little bit of your ADD kicking in.
Yeah, well, I take my medicine in the morning, so when it kicks in, I get like a little dumber for like an hour, and then I'm smart again.
So that hour just happens to be right now.
Correct. During the time when I have
Great,
things to do.
perfect, awesome, yeah. Perfect timing.
I know. Hey, blame Vyvanse. Don't blame me.
Oh, Vyvanse.
My best girl, Vyvanse. She lets me do the dishes. Yeah, so he knew something was going on. And the documentarian who I was listening to, if that's a title, brought up that a lot of times kidnapped victims will lie about being sexually abused.
Yeah.
Because they're
Yeah.
embarrassed or because they think their husband will be angry, which is so sad, but totally makes sense. So, and Keith was told that, like he was going to support groups and everything. So I'm sure they told him she may be covering things up because she's embarrassed.
Sure.
So he's probably feeling really conflicted because he's trying to stand by her.
Right.
But at the same time, something else he pointed out was like, this guy has been married to this woman for so long. He knows that she is a fishy woman.
Yeah.
This is the part of the story that's kind of still developing, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because this is where the other part of like the hoax, the horrible hoaxes comes in. Because Papini ended up being charged with mail fraud because she received over $30,000 from the Victim Compensation Board, the California Victim Compensation Board.
Oh, God.
Because she solved her kidnapping because she like got set free. So
Okay.
you get the money. It's like you
Okay.
get the reward money.
Okay.
So she had stolen that money.
Right.
because she
Right.
was never
She got
kidnapped.
it under false pretense.
Right. So on March 3rd, 2022, she was arrested on charges of the mail fraud and making false statements
Yeah.
to police.
Yeah.
So her husband divorced her.
Good.
You see him find out in the interview. Like, this is why I totally recommend watching it because
Yeah.
it is insane.
Yeah.
It's so sad because
Yeah.
like you would kind of expect that like he would like jump up and be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? Because they're like, hey, we found male DNA on your clothes, because she's still like, my husband can be in the room. Everything's fine. What are you talking about? She's still denying it. And they're like, okay, well, then we can go there then. Like, we were trying to make it easier
Yeah,
for you, but like,
yeah.
fine. The DNA we found, and by the way, I called her, her ex-boyfriend who she'd been staying with, Steven. His name is James Reyes, so I don't know who Steven is.
I don't know who Steven is either.
Steven's innocent. They were like, the DNA found on your clothes was James Reyes.
Oh.
And she immediately, this is how crazy she is, instead of being like, okay, shit, well, you have all this evidence.
Sure.
Yeah, I did that. She starts implying that James, this kind man who drove all the way across the country to save her from her abusive husband, she was like, he organized the kidnapping? Oh no, I can't believe he'd be in on it.
So she just kept.
Yeah, she pushed
kept
all the
going.
blame on him.
Wow.
Like, now James may be stupid and he may have, because when she was living there, because she did have like a broken nose and she was emaciated. She stopped eating. She lived in the room with like the windows closed so that she would look like very pale, and like she had like vitamin D deficiency and all that stuff. And she convinced him to not only brand her, because she was like, it's cool, it's like a
break
tattoo,
her fucking nose,
but break her nose with a hockey stick. She
with
held
a hockey stick.
Correct. She held it to her face and he pushed it.
Oh,
her
that's
nose.
weird. Oh God, that's
Yup.
gross. That's gross.
So he's not innocent at this point.
No.
He hasn't been charged with anything.
Well, he's kind of been a cooperating witness. It sounds like to this point.
He didn't. And he never really lied to the police.
They showed up and he was like,
right. Pretty much. He's because they asked him. They were like, buddy, you're probably in trouble. Like, why didn't you come forward? And he was like, are you kidding? He's like, she's been telling me that her husband says he's going to kill her and kill her children and break her neck and all this stuff. I came to get her and she's totally weird. They never even had sex when she was at the house. Like, this wasn't like her like having fun living with her ex-boyfriend. Like, he was
just
like,
her leaving her
leaving.
family.
And he was like, I don't know what's going on. And then she came to me and said, I just need to go back. This has gotten out of control. Drive me back and then he didn't know. I mean, I guess he saw that she was zip tied or whatever, but then she was like, I've been horribly abused. And he's like, well, I can't come forward now.
Yeah.
They're going to think I did it.
I mean, that's
So
a good point.
I understand a little. I think he's dumb and he made dumb choices, but I don't necessarily think that he's this like mega criminal.
No.
You know?
No.
So he hasn't been charged.
Yeah.
But she did go to jail. She got convicted with the mail fraud and the making false statements because you can't lie.
You can't do that. You can't just lie to police.
There's a part of the interview
Police
that's
can lie to
really
you,
funny. Right.
but
They are allowed to lie to you.
You can't lie to police.
There was a funny, because she, at no time ever has she really fully admitted to what she has done.
Yeah.
After they confronted her with the evidence, they're like, okay, so yes or no, did two Hispanic women point a gun at you and tell you to get in the car? And she's like, I don't know. And then she's trying to say, like, I don't remember.
I don't know.
But they had very cleverly asked her statements, like, in the interview. They kind of peppered it in. Like, oh, and what did this one do? Oh, and this one. So it's like, well, you said today that that's what happened. So you weren't in shock because that was earlier. Girly pop. I don't think so.
There's something, too, that I'm like, if she were smart, I mean, this could go either way. But if she really wanted to sell it, she probably should have gotten an attorney when she came back.
That's
because
right.
There's also, I mean, yes, people assume that because you get an attorney, you're guilty.
But it's not true.
But it's not
Get a
true.
fucking attorney.
Just
That's
get an attorney.
But
she
the
probably could have
reason-
saved herself a lot of trouble had she gotten an attorney.
And this is the thing, is like, Sherry has lied all her life, and she has lied for attention all of her life. I do not think that, like, because I don't think that she is stupid. I think that she's awful, but I don't think she's stupid. I think that if she legitimately, like, just had, like, a psychotic break and, like, left and then was like, oh no, this got way too big, I have to come back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just make up the story. I think that she would like show some guilt.
Yeah.
And I think that she would have lawyered up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, she's probably a sociopath, let's be real. But like,
yeah. Like, that's why I think it's
Yeah.
like malingering
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, she made it up because she wanted as much attention as possible.
yeah. But there is also this idea that, like, if I tell the police this story, they're going to think that I'm telling the truth.
Right.
Because
Which I understand a little, but
Yeah,
like, get
yeah.
an attorney.
get an
attorney.
general.
Like,
Good
I don't
life
like this
advice in
lady and
general.
I'm glad she got caught, but like, get an attorney. They are there to help you. They are there to help you.
I'm glad she
You
got
better
caught,
call
though.
Saul.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she faced up to 25 years, like, with
Okay.
all of these charges. But 6 weeks after the arrest, she signed a plea deal,
Okay.
admitting that she had orchestrated the hoax, but she didn't go into it.
Okay.
Is that an Alfred plea, I think, where it's like, I admit that there's evidence enough to
Yes.
convict me,
Yes.
but I'm just not going to go into details. Let's just say I probably did it.
Yeah.
So in September 2022, she was sentenced to 18 months and fined $300,000.
Good.
So right after the final interview, Keith immediately filed for divorce.
Okay.
He has full custody over the children. I don't think she's even legally allowed to see them,
Yeah.
which is good. I thought it was like kind of shitty. Like, the interview was really interesting to watch, but I felt really sorry for Keith because the whole interview, he's like, can I help you, Sherry? Like, oh, if this is too tough to talk about, don't talk about it. Can I get
Very
you some
doting,
water?
very
Yeah.
caring,
He
yeah.
like pulls out her chair for her, and in the interview, he finds out right then.
Yeah.
Like, and he's just sitting there. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm into,
because it
like,
also has to be kind of embarrassing.
so
and
embarrassing.
Shameful.
That was the first thing
and-
he said, is because he comes
Yeah.
back in the room after she goes out and is talking to the detectives and kind of yelling at them. And he goes, well, I'm the idiot husband.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, and I thought they were dicks. Like, they were good detectives.
I mean,
but he,
yeah, but what do you say to that? Like,
well, but he was like, why didn't you fucking tell me? Why didn't you tell me? He's like, I've been living with her, with my children in the home.
From an investigative standpoint, there's always
Right.
a possibility that he is working together with her,
Right.
and knew about it.
Which some people think.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think it's impossible, but I think that him and the boyfriend, James Reyes, are both just like, they were
Pawns.
manipulated. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that they're blameless. And I think that both of them should have done more. Like, James Reyes should have been like, let's call the police.
Yeah.
And her husband should have been like, listen, like, something's going on. But I understand they were both in like tricky situations.
The police wouldn't. It's a shitty way to find out, but they wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to tell them on
And
the
he
off
did
chance
say-
that he.
Right. They had
would
to
tip her
wait
off.
for a bunch of stuff to come back too. And they were like, Keith, this happened Thursday. Like, we got this only a couple of days ago. This was when we
Right.
could come forward with it. But I do kind of wish that they had done something to be like, let's get you and the kids to like a hotel.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah.
So that kind of made me sad. But
Yeah.
he has full custody. He's staying out of the public eye. Him and the kids are supposedly doing very well. And
Good.
And yeah, they don't contact their mother.
Yeah.
And apparently now she's coming out with a Hulu thing. That
well, it's not
Hulu-
her, but
Well,
is it? I don't think so. Is
I
she
thought
in
she
it?
was doing like interviews in it.
Is she? Yeah, but I don't think that's like her.
Well, I know, but I mean, she.
They did that shit with Casey Anthony too. Like,
Ugh, disgusting.
yeah. Now I'm
Let me
curi-
say I'm
now-
the biggest
now I'm
hater.
curious. Hold on. What was the name of that? Do you remember?
No, I didn't watch it. because it made me so mad.
Hulu, the new one you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Perfect Wife.
Yeah, Sherry.
Perfect Wife. The mysterious disappearance of Sherry Papini.
Yeah. I was waiting until after this to watch it. So I don't know
me
anything
too.
about
Me
it.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
where's the IMDb?
I don't know.
Here we go.
Because it would be so like, and I know it's not like a Sherry Papini production, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that, but I'm assuming. But like, I mean, like, she's getting in the limelight again.
Right.
Like,
oh,
girl,
yeah.
girl, let it
Yeah.
go.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
You know?
I see what you're saying.
And like, if
Yeah.
I'm wrong and it's like, has nothing to do with her and it's like an ID thing or whatever, then I'm wrong. But I've never been wrong.
No. Also, it wouldn't be on Hulu. It would be on Max.
Oh, good. I have Max. I can watch
No,
that.
it's on Hulu. But I'm saying if it was an ID thing, it would be on Max because they're owned. It's okay.
So I've cut all this out.
They're owned by. Nah, it's fine. So anyway,
Yeah, that is the case of Sherry Papini.
yeah, it's a very fascinating case in
There's
general.
a lot that like I was trying not to like go on, but there's a lot that goes into the case. I didn't even mention the fact that when in between when she came back from being kidnapped, that like 6 years where she was just living at home, they found evidence, something that she had written in high school, like a blog post.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this part of it?
No.
So she always said, because she was, you know, this big complainer, that she was like, oh, my life has been horrible. My parents are abusive. Everyone who I meet is abusive to me and I'm a victim and blah, 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 which has never been substantiated in any way.
Yeah.
But they found that she wrote this big essay on this fucking skinhead blog, this white supremacist blog.
Okay.
And it's this absolutely crazy bullshit essay about like, I'm a white blonde girl and I go to school with a bunch of horrible Hispanic people.
Oh,
and
God.
I hate Hispanics and like
Jesus.
all of this. And it was this completely bullshit story of like, all of these Hispanics steal her stuff all the time and beat her up because, and this is like pretty much a direct quote, because I'm white and proud of my heritage and race.
God.
And because I'm drug free. I'm like, you are so disgusting and racist. And she tacks on this story about how this group of Mexicans is berating her father and calling him Hitler, which like people don't do for no reason. Like, I'm sure nothing in the story happened, but I'm like, people aren't just like going out here. Like, maybe he's
Right.
Hitler. Have you
Right.
considered that he might be Hitler?
Right.
And like, she jumps on this like group of three of like a bunch of guys, and it takes three grown men to pull her off. When,
Whatever.
by the way,
Whatever, Papini, go away.
After being found, she was like 85 pounds. She was a small girl.
Yeah.
So like, no, it didn't.
Jeez.
So it's like, oh, you're making up stuff because you're racist towards Mexicans.
Yeah, yeah. So apparently the documentary follows the events after she returns home.
Awkward.
So interesting.
Wow.
We'll have to watch that. I still want to watch it. But
Yes.
yeah, anyway.
So we'll have to get back to you about whether she's keeping a low profile or whether she's like, let's do some more.
yeah.
So anyway, I think that she's bologna and cheese. And I hate her. And I just, as a mother, that was the toughest thing, was like, you're going to leave your kids.
Yeah.
They had no idea what happened to you. And for years, they thought that you were like beat up and that you were this like amazing hero trying to escape all the time. Get fucked.
So pretty much anybody that knows anything about true crime knows about Jack the Ripper. You've heard about Jack the Ripper?
God,
You know about Jack the
yes.
Ripper? Okay. Are you familiar with the Yorkshire Ripper?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard about the hoax that delayed the case
I'm trying
and
to
potentially
remember.
cause, even if you are, say no, because that's how this
Yeah.
podcast works.
Right, I was going to say, no, I've never. The
Exactly.
whom?
So
What?
since we're talking about hoaxes, it is going to be the hoax part of this is
Yeah.
going to be the main thrust of the story.
Right.
But we can't really talk about it without talking about the Yorkshire Ripper case. So
Of course.
beginning as early as 1969, the Yorkshire Ripper began.
And this is in like England, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He began attacking women around Yorkshire and Manchester, England. He was exclusively targeting female sex workers, murdering them in extremely horrific ways.
Yeah.
The first murder connected to the Ripper is that of 28-year-old Wilma McCann, a sex worker who is murdered in October 1975. Just a few months later, the Ripper killed 42-year-old Emily Jackson in January 1976. He wouldn't strike again until February 1977 when the Ripper murders 28-year-old Irene Richardson. And then just a few months later, 32-year-old Patricia Atkinson. And then just a couple months later after that, 16-year-old Jane McDonald. And even later still, 21-year-old Jean Jordan.
Oh my gosh.
This is
he's
all just with
he's
like
escalating
months.
like fast.
Yeah. Now, it's important to point out that Jane McDonald was the first woman of this sort of series of killings that wasn't a sex worker.
Okay.
Unlike the rest of his victims.
She was the one who was like 16, right?
She was 16.
Okay.
So this sort of marked a change in the victim profile, which they attribute to the intense media coverage of the Ripper killings. And so he's seeing all of this media coverage and is like, I need to change my MO.
Okay.
So
I'm sure that sex workers were probably like, maybe I won't go out in this area.
Well, and
like,
they were trying to like get the news out to warn people.
Yeah.
It was also around this time that the media gave the mystery killer the name the Yorkshire Ripper. What?
Stop giving killers cool names.
I mean,
You like the small wienered guy.
some of them are not super great.
Yeah.
And they're funny. I like a good funny name.
See, and some of them are funny, but I do feel like it's like, I'm the Yorkshire Ripper. It's like so cool. But he doesn't want to be like, I'm the small weenie guy.
I'm the small weenie guy. This was also the early 70s.
Right,
So,
which they, you know.
Yeah, like basically early to mid 70s.
Right. So they didn't know.
They did that kind of shit then.
Yeah, they
That was,
totally
like,
did.
The headline.
Super
They needed the
sensationalist.
headline.
Yeah, I just think it's silly.
I agree. In 1978, 3 more victims fell to the Ripper. 22-year-old Yvonne Pearson, 18-year-old Helen Ritka, and 40-year-old Vera Willward, all sex workers. It would be nearly a year before he would strike again when he murdered 19-year-old Josephine Whitaker, who had worked as a bank clerk. So again, sort of like...
Deviating from the pattern.
Correct.
Wow.
Whitaker's murder got the public into a bit of a frenzy because she was seen as a more, quote unquote, respectable member of society at the time. And it sort of gave people this sense of like, oh my God, this can happen. This isn't just happening to sex workers anymore. This can happen to anybody.
Now we mysteriously care.
Even the upstanding in our society. Like,
yeah, I hate that. That's really sad.
yes, except all in a British accent.
Yeah. Oh, no, just
Then later in 1979, the Ripper struck again when he murdered 20-year-old Barbara Leach, who was a student. So again, this like,
yeah.
oh my God, it can happen to anybody.
Right.
So this is where the actual story picks up.
Okay.
This time period. So beginning in March 1978, police begin receiving letters from a person claiming to be the Yorkshire Ripper. It was first postmarked from Sunderland on March 8th, 1978, and sent to Detective George Oldfield. It read, it's a little long, so bear with me.
I love it.
Dear sir, I am sorry.
You're not going to be British?
No. No, I want to keep, I need to keep listeners. Dear sir, I am sorry I cannot give my name for obvious reasons. I am the Ripper. I've been dubbed a maniac by the press, but not by you. You call me clever, and I am. You and your mates haven't a clue. They do write it in this sort of like British affect, and there's not a lot of punctuation, so I apologize if some of these are round sentences.
Love it.
You and your mates haven't a clue. The photo in the paper gave me fits, and that lot about killing myself, no chance. I've got things to do. My purpose to rid the streets of them sluts. My one regret is that young lassie McDonald did not know cause changed routine that night. Up to number 8 now. You say 7, but remember Preston 75? Get about, you know. You were right. I travel a bit. You probably look for me in Sunderland. Don't bother. I am not daft. Just posted letter there on one of my trips. Not a bad place compared with Chapeltown and Manningham and other places. Warn whores to keep off the streets because I feel it coming again. Sorry about young lassie. Yours respectfully, Jack the Ripper. Might write again later.
Jack the Ripper.
Might write again later. Not sure. Last one really deserved it. Whore's getting younger each time. Old slut next time, I hope. Huddersfield, never again. Too small, close call, last one. End quote. That was the first letter.
Oh my God.
Yes. He did sign, so I will say,
Yeah.
he signed all of these Jack the Ripper. Which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that's
we'll talk about
weird.
that later. Yeah. There was also a reference
Creepy.
to Preston 75
Yeah, I was about to ask about that.
in this letter. So he was referencing the murder of Joan Harrison, who
Okay.
at the time the police were also attributing to the Yorkshire Ripper.
Okay.
But in 2011, thanks to DNA evidence, it was determined that Harrison had been murdered by a man named Christopher Smith, who died in 2008.
Okay. So she was just unconnected.
Yes. And there are a couple of these because there's a lot of murder happening
Yeah.
in England in the 70s.
Yeah.
So there's a couple that are connected, not
Right.
connected.
Right.
Some
There's
that
a lot
they-
of British cases like that.
yeah, that they thought were and then later turned out not to
like
be.
the Moors murders and stuff. There's a couple they're still not sure.
Yes. And
Yeah.
there's also, especially in the Yorkshire Ripper case, a lot of things that they're we probably don't know about all of the people he's killed.
Right. Right.
They end up getting him on so many
Yeah.
murders, but it's probably way more than that, and we just don't know about it.
That's
so
true.
Kind of goes both ways.
Right. Same.
The second letter, postmarked on March 13th, 1978, also addressed to Detective George Oldfield, read, Dear Sir, I have already written Chief Constable Oldfield, a man I respect, concerning the recent Ripper murders. I told him, and I am telling you, to warn them whores I'll strike again, and soon when heat cools off. About the McDonald lassie, I didn't know that she was decent, and I am sorry. I changed my routine that night. Up to murder 8 now, you say, but remember Preston 75. Easy picking them up. Don't even have to try. You think they'll learn, but they don't. Most are young lassies. Next time, try older one, I hope. Police haven't a clue yet, and I don't leave any. I am very clever, and don't look for me up in Sunderland because I'm not stupid.
Again,
just past.
I'm not up there.
I know this came from Sunderland, but don't look there.
Don't
I'm not
even
there.
look there. Don't. Stop.
Just passed through the place. Not bad place compared with Chapeltown and Manningham. Can't walk the streets for them whore. Don't forget, warn them. I feel it coming on again if I get the chance. Sorry about the lassie. I didn't know. Yours respectfully, Jack the Ripper. Might write again after another one's gone. Maybe
Okay.
Liverpool or even Manchester again. Too hot here in Yorkshire. Bye. I have given advance warning, so it's yours and theirs fault. End
What?
quote. So that's the second letter.
So it's the same.
It is
I
a
also
very similar letter.
Yeah, very similar. I also love that he's talking about this town's pretty nice and boy, it sure is hot today.
Yeah.
Get a pen pal.
Yeah.
Stop this.
Yeah, but also don't come to Sunderland.
Yeah, don't come there. I'm not there. So don't even think about it.
Yeah. And all of these letters, I believe, were postmarked from Sunderland.
Yeah.
And it, again, would make sense that he's postmarking it from someplace he is not at.
Right.
But to, in the letter, be
Twice be and just so you
No,
know,
no, no.
you know where I'm not?
you know where I'm not? Sunderland.
It's a nice area though, but I'm not here though.
Yeah. So a year later,
Oh my God.
full year later, on March 23rd, 1979, police receive a third letter,
Okay.
also to Detective Oldfield, which read, Dear Officer, sorry I haven't written, about a year to be exact, but I haven't been up north for quite a while. I wasn't kidding last time I wrote saying the whore would be older this time and maybe I'd strike in Manchester for a change. You should have took heed. That bit about her being in hospital, funny the lady mentioned something about being in the same hospital before I stopped her whoring ways. The lads won't worry about hospital. Oh, the lass won't worry about hospital now, will she? I bet you are wondering how come I haven't been to work for ages. Well, I would have been if it hadn't been for your cursed soppers. I had the lady just where I wanted her and was about to strike when one of your cursing police cars stopped right outside the lad.
meddling kids.
He must have been a dumb copper because he didn't say anything. He didn't know how close he was to catching me. Ooh. Tell you the truth, I thought I was collared. The lady said, don't worry about coppers. Little did she know the bloody copper saved her neck. That was last month, so I don't know when I will get back on the job, but I know it won't be Chapeltown, too bloody hot there. Maybe Bradford's Manningham might write again if up north. Jack the Ripper. P.S. Did you get letter I sent to Daily Mirror in Manchester?
Okay. You're like a fame whore.
Yeah. So
did you get my letter?
Did you get the letter?
Did you get my
But again, him being like, don't know if I'm going to go up to Chapeltown. It's way too hot up there.
Yeah.
Weird.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Finally, on June 17th, 1979, police receive a cassette tape.
Oh my God.
That was sent to Oldfield.
What's a cassette tape?
I have
like
the
iTunes?
recording. I'm going to play you the recording.
Yes.
Just so you can hear it. Hopefully you can hear it from there. And then I realize it's a little hard to hear, and sometimes the accent is a little thick. So
I watch a lot of BBC.
Yeah, I'll read it afterwards for all of our listeners too,
Cool.
but just as a heads up. So here is the
I'm so excited.
the cassette tape they released.
Oh my God.
I'm Jack. I see you are still having no look catching me. I have the greatest respect for you, George. But Lord, you are no near catching me now. And 4 years ago when I started, I reckon your boys are letting you down, George. They can't be much good, can you?
Okay.
Not a word.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean. It would have been better if it was clear,
so
but this
confident.
you were very confident. But this is a cassette tape recording. It's not like the highest quality, yeah. So he says, I'm Jack. I see you are still having no luck catching me. I have the greatest respect for you, George, but Lord, you are no nearer catching me now than 4 years ago when I started. I reckon your boys are letting you down, George. They can't be much good, can they? Also, and this was not included in that clip, but the recording ended with a portion of the single Thank You for Being a Friend by Andrew Gold.
He was watching Golden Girls.
Most of us will know that the cover of that song was used for the theme for the Yorkshire Ripper.
Well, he was saying Jack the
It's
Ripper.
true. It's true. You're right. You know what? I got my face. You're right. But yeah, so it was basically like
my gosh.
the original version of the Golden Girls theme. He like tacked onto the end.
I don't think I've heard like the original.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard the original
I've
either.
only heard the lady sing it.
And did you ever watch Golden Palace?
No.
Okay, there's a different version there.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's that same song.
I love Golden Girls.
Golden Palace was the spin-off show after Golden Girls ended.
Oh, I didn't even know that existed.
Girl, it's super good.
Oh.
First, okay, we're going to take a little minute.
Yeah,
We're going to
yeah.
inform you about Golden Palace.
What is it?
Blanche, Rose, and Sophia, because I don't know if you remember this, but at the end of Golden Girls, Dorothy gets married to Blanche's cousin.
Yeah.
They fuck off.
Yeah.
Rose, Sophia, and Blanche decide to buy a hotel and run a hotel. And the show is them running the hotel. It has, I'm pretty sure it was maybe Richard Pryor.
Oh,
maybe not
really?
Richard Pryor. I forget who the comedian is. And then I think it's Cheech Marin as like the chef is in the show. It's really good.
What?
It's basically like Golden Girls without Dorothy.
Yeah.
You should watch it. It's on Hulu.
I'm going to watch it.
It's
That's
on Hulu.
amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty,
Oh
it's
my
something.
God.
It's something for
Yes.
sure. Anyway.
That sounds fabulous.
So they get this tape. By this time,
Thank you for being
total 10 women had been murdered. And police were like desperate for any leads that they could get. And they really thought that these letters that were coming in and the tape that had come in were like their lead, their connection to the Ripper. Even though the FBI in America had taken a look at some of this evidence and they were like, hey guys, we're pretty sure this is a hoax.
Yeah.
They were like, no.
Smells hoaxy.
Yeah, this is like real.
Yeah.
And we're going to investigate it to its fullest extent. So they start looking into these letters. They were able to determine that the person on the tape had a Wearside accent and that it was distinctive to the Castletown area of Sunderland. So this
What?
specific Sunderland?
No
I
way!
know.
But he said he wasn't in Sunderland.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to know? Who would have thunk?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is interesting.
And
And there's
so-
so many British like dialects.
After this tape came out,
Yeah.
the press started dubbing him Wearside Jack
Okay.
because of his
That's kinda cool.
accent, and he would sign everything Jack the Ripper. So
Sounds like a pirate.
Wearside Jack,
Yeah.
yeah, not as exciting.
No. A really lame pirate.
So they launch this huge investigation into the men in that area. In total, 40,000 men were investigated.
Wow.
A Dial the Ripper hotline
Oh my
was set up
God.
for any information regarding
Dial
the crimes.
the Ripper. Okay, Scream.
And 300 advertisements were placed in newspapers, which essentially used about £1 million of the investigative budget for this case.
For nothing.
Meanwhile, voice experts who had listened to the tape were trying to tell police this is a fucking hoax. It's a hoax.
Oh, were they like listening to like his tone and stuff? And they were like he's lying?
Some of the and there were people who were like looking at the letters that were like some of this information just doesn't match up.
Right. That's interesting.
There were like it wasn't. I will say it was not the majority of people,
Right.
but there were like flags going up this whole time that were like,
Oh, wow.
hey guys, we might not want to stop looking into this. Like
Yeah.
this might be a hoax. Olive Smelt, who had been attacked by the Ripper but managed to escape.
Wow.
She provided an interview to the Sunday Times in which she expressed her frustration that police didn't believe her when she was trying to tell them it was a local guy. It wasn't like somebody from out of town that
And
had
they're
come
going
in.
off to Sunderland or whatever.
Exactly.
Assholes.
Despite all of this.
Believe women.
Yes, please. Please.
Yes.
I agree.
Completely.
Hard yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So despite all of this, police focus in on the tape as the main thrust of their investigation. A detective here's another one. A detective within the department attempted to raise a flag when the body of Yvonne Pearson was discovered. So at the time that the letters were received, she had already been murdered, but not yet found in Bradford.
Okay.
And Wearside Jack didn't mention this in any of the letters that he sent.
Right.
He made reference to this
Because he's
Preston
not the murderer.
75.
Right.
But why, if she hadn't been found yet,
Right.
would you not be like, also, I left you a little treat in Bradford.
While you're not going to Sunderland, also don't go to Bradford.
Also don't go to Bradford,
There is
yeah.
not a body
Yeah.
there, just in case you guys were wondering.
But this
even
too was looked over. They were just kind of like, it's fine. Shush.
I think they were just kind of like, we're done with this Ripper thing. So like, let's pretend like we found the murderer. And then we
Right.
can go home.
So the main confirming evidence, like physical evidence that they had, were blood cells.
Okay.
They had both secretions from the scene and gum on one of the letters that Wearside Jack had sent in. It just so happened, very coincidental.
I love these.
That both had B group blood cells, which is something about 6% of men have.
What?
And so they took this as confirmation that the Wearside Jack letters and whoever was committing these crimes, they were both coming from the same person.
Whoa.
Completely coincidental.
That's crazy.
But they were like 6%. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a really low which I don't for the blood testing technology, DNA technology at the time.
Right.
That is like pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
That's about as close as you can get.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
for that piece, I don't necessarily blame them for jumping to that conclusion. But when you take that and then look at everything else, it's
like why weren't you listening to the woman who had the experience?
Right,
Why wouldn't you
right.
let her tell you about
exactly. Because she's a woman.
it? Duh. They're like, be quiet. Go in the kitchen, love. Hook
Now,
me up a Yorkshire pudding.
Meanwhile, police are like fully down the rabbit hole of this investigation of Wearside Jack.
It seems so.
The Yorkshire Ripper is still killing women.
Oh my God.
He's still going. So in 1980, 47-year-old Marguerite Walls, who had worked as a civil servant, and 20-year-old student Jacqueline Hill were both murdered. This all happened like towards the end of 1980.
Yeah.
Then in January 2nd, 1981, police are doing checks on cars in Sheffield when one of the officers spots a car that has fake license plates.
Ooh.
And they're like, that's kind of weird.
Ladies
Let's just
and gentlemen,
go
we
see what's
got
going on. So they approach the car to find a man named Peter Sutcliffe sitting in the car with a sex worker named Olivia Reavers. They take Sutcliffe into custody because they're like, you have fake plates. You're
Right.
sitting with a sex
You're
worker.
not supposed to do that.
They bring him in to question him in connection with the Ripper cases because obviously there's like the sex
Right.
worker connection.
Right.
And after 2 days of interrogation, Sutcliffe completely confesses to the Ripper murders, saying, quote, "It's all right. I know what you're leading up to. The Yorkshire Ripper. It's me. I killed all those women."
Whoa.
Yeah. So Sutcliffe is arrested and he's charged and in total found guilty of 13 counts of murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. He receives a minimum of 30 years before parole can be considered, which is like, this is one of these big differences in our system and the UK system.
Right.
They almost always put on like before parole can be considered, which
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get it.
Right.
In 1984,
That is interesting. Yeah.
Sutcliffe was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and was sent to a mental institution. And when the time came, so I think it was in 2010, there was a ruling made by the court that basically he was not allowed to be released. So this is what happens. They'll sometimes determine like, actually,
Yeah.
we think you can't get out. So that means
You can only
he-
get so many paroles. And
Right,
stuff. Yeah.
right. So that means
makes
he was going to spend life in prison.
Right.
In 2016, Sutcliffe was deemed mentally stable enough to be returned to a max security prison.
Okay.
Not to society. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
I was
you
like,
saw that looking right. No, they took him from the mental institution back to a max
Got
security
it.
prison.
Like, you no longer need treatment.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what's up with Sutcliffe.
Okay.
At this point. So what about Wareside Jack?
Yeah.
Let's talk about him.
Let's do that.
Obviously, it's clear now that the Ripper has been caught, the letters and the tapes were a hoax.
Right.
It caused the investigation to be delayed for a full 18 months.
Oh my God.
Which-
it was what, like £1 million, you said? Wasted?
Wasted, which, and
my
not to mention
God.
however many man hours it
right.
took to do all of that investigation.
That's just one section. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That really pisses me off.
I feel like I remember seeing it was like 40,000 man hours or something, like something crazy.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Obviously, this delay allowed Sutcliffe to murder more
Right.
women,
Right.
some of which we probably don't even know about.
I'm sure.
It was later revealed that Sutcliffe had been interviewed during their investigation 9 times.
What?
Even wearing a pair of boots that matched prints that they had
Shut
found.
up.
But like nobody checked his feet, nobody
God damn
noticed. He was completely disregarded because his accent did not match the tape that they had received.
Shut the fuck on one fucking thing?
Yeah. And they only had that one tape. But they were acting under the belief that
That's ridiculous.
Those were all accurate. Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous. Oh my
it's
God.
like to have. Here's the thing: is I'm like,
hate England now.
They're operating with what they have at the time,
Right. But it's like,
Which
you
I
can't
get.
pin out, you can't, what does my mom say? You can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
She doesn't have an accent like that.
And once things started coming, I mean, it's tricky because they had this blood match evidence, which
Right.
is strong
Right.
in their opinion,
Right.
and especially when it's like the only physical evidence you have, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there were people trying to raise flags.
Right. Why
and
hear it out a little bit?
they completely, like they really narrowed into this one thing. Like they
Yeah.
just sort of left every other line of inquiry.
Yeah.
And so,
It definitely kind of seems to me like they were just like, we got him. We did the work. you
yeah,
know?
now we just got to wait for him to come to us.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Which
They were taking the easy way
he
out.
did, but only after he killed more women. so
Oh my
like,
God.
yeah.
I'm so pissed.
Yeah. In 2005, 2005.
What?
West Yorkshire police decide to review the Ripper case in hopes to discover who the hoaxer was.
That's what I'm hoping too.
Now, of course, by this time, DNA evidence had advanced
Right.
so much they were able to pull
I'm holding on to my
DNA
shorts.
from the they were able to pull DNA from the gum of one of the letters, like the envelopes.
Gum. Like, really?
That's what it's called. It's like
No, I think that's just funny that he's
Oh,
like
yeah. I'm like, that's
chewing
what it's
a
called.
lot of like bubblicious.
no.
Oh, it's just like the
That's the
sealant?
name of the adhesive that you
Oh,
lick is like
I
envelope
literally
gum.
almost said something
That's what
earlier
it's called.
because I thought you meant like that he
No.
accidentally like spit gum into it. And I was
No.
like, fucking
It's like the
idiot.
adhesive. So when you lick a letter,
Oh,
that's
like the glue.
adhesive gum.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, but it's England, so they call it gum, you know?
I was thinking of like bubble gum this whole
No. It's like
That's
the
pretty
envelope
funny.
adhesive. Make more sense now?
Yeah.
So they were able to pull DNA from the gum of one of the letters.
Wow.
This was then matched in the United Kingdom National DNA Database and came back as a man named John Humble, who had been arrested for something unrelated in 2001. It was like drunk and disorderly.
So his DNA was in the system. Yes.
So let's talk about John Humble.
Oh
for a
my
second.
God.
Let's
I knew
talk
it was
about
a
him.
guy.
Yeah.
Felt it in my bones.
Yeah. So Humble was described as having an above average school results.
Okay.
And he even had received a few qualifications before he left school at 16.
Ooh.
Once he left, he worked a number of jobs, including a bricklaying apprenticeship, hospital laundry, and security guard.
Okay.
Kind of odd jobs.
Yeah.
But Humble spent quite a bit of time in the library browsing specifically through the true crime books.
It's always those true crimers. Anybody who's interested in true crime is weird.
It's true. Speaking from experience, that's accurate. He really became interested in the Jack the Ripper case.
Oh.
Some would even say obsessed. I would say obsessed.
Obsessed.
Yeah. So this was like kind of a huge factor in him deciding to send these letters in the tape of the 80s.
Right.
But thanks to the DNA evidence, Humble was arrested in October 2005.
Wow.
So they arrest him. When he was arrested,
So long after.
I know. When he was arrested, Humble was described as having he was described as a chronic alcoholic and an unemployed laborer.
Oh.
According to the police, Humble and his brother were so drunk when he was arrested that they had to wait a full day before doing interviews to allow him to sober up.
They had to like
and,
drunk take him.
Yeah.
Tank.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. According to The Independent, during Humble's interviews, he had admitted to conspiring to pervert the course of justice and said, quote, "The Ripper case was getting on my nerves. It was on the bloody telly all the time. I shouldn't have done it. I know that because it's evil. I do deserve to go to jail," end quote.
Wow. I mean, at least you admit that, dickhead.
Right. Once he was caught, he like fully admitted to everything.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
He also claimed to have been motivated by a hatred of police after like a few run-ins of his own. Now, interestingly enough, this all comes out after he's arrested and he starts kind of telling them what was going on. There were attempts by Humble to sort of, shall we say, undo the damage that Wareside Jack did. On September 14th, 1979, he called an incident room where he said, quote, "Tell him it's a fake," in reference to Oldfield, Detective Oldfield, like, tell him it's fake.
Okay.
But officers said the person who called didn't match the voice on the tape. He tried this a second time and
Oh
was
my
ignored a second
God.
time. Because they were like,
it didn't work the first time, dude.
but the accent
The accent, damn it.
didn't match.
Oh my God. What
Didn't
is
match.
it? Like, what is it with these guys and their accents?
I don't know. But there is quite a difference in like dialects and accents around England, you know,
Right.
but they really
people
were
can
just
also
like
fake accents.
Yeah. And I'm also
time can
wondering
change.
how much of that, like him calling and being like, it's fake and hanging up. One, probably wasn't recorded. Two, you're
did
going
he
on the
even
word
do
of a
that?
guy who's like now listening to
Right.
the Wareside Jack tape later and is like, doesn't match.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's not the same.
Yeah.
guy.
Also prove it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Humble was taken into court in January 2006,
Wow.
where he initially pleaded not guilty, which is pretty common for your first plea. You need time to like get your defense together.
Okay.
But in February, he admitted to being Wareside Jack, and in March, pled guilty to 4 counts of perverting the course of justice. Humble received 8 years in prison.
Good.
And a later appeal was rejected.
Good.
So he just went to prison.
Yeah, sit your ass.
He served 4 years before being released in 2009 and given a new identity
No.
as John Samuel Anderson. Also something that is a really common practice with high-profile cases in the UK specifically.
Okay, well, I don't like that.
We don't really do that here, but
Yeah.
that's really common over there.
I don't like that.
Then, in August 2019, Humble died from heart failure as a result of alcoholism.
Thoughts and prayers.
Sutcliffe died in November 2020, still serving his time. He had suffered a heart attack and later tested positive for COVID, which he then refused treatment for. And so he died.
That's what happens.
Now, following Sutcliffe's death, the West Yorkshire Police issued an apology for the tone and implications of their investigation. Okay, so this is like almost
the tone.
Yes.
Sorry that we allowed people to die because we're dumb.
Well, they're specifically referencing the fact that in the investigation and in the court case, they made a distinction between the sex workers and respectable women.
Oh, okay, so they're apologizing for that. I see.
That's what they. That is really what they're apologizing for. I'll read you a little bit of it.
Well, they should. Because that was fucked up.
Yeah, right. So according to The Independent, the apology was given by Chief Constable John Robbins on behalf of the West Yorkshire Police saying, quote, I apologize for the additional distress and anxiety caused to all relatives by the language, tone, and terminology used by senior officers at the time in relation to Peter Sutcliffe's victims. Such language and attitudes may have reflected wider social attitudes of the day, but it was wrong then as it is now.
Good.
Robbins also said, quote, failings and mistakes that were made are fully acknowledged and documented. We can say without doubt that the lessons learned from the Peter Sutcliffe inquiry have proved formative in shaping the investigation of serious and complex crime within modern day policing, end quote.
Well, it should.
And that's it. I mean, they're all dead.
God.
Everyone's dead now.
Right.
And they issued an apology. I thought it was really interesting that the main thrust of it has to do with the tone, which, yes, I agree with.
Right.
But they, like, the fact that they're just like failings and mistakes that were made are fully acknowledged and documented.
Right. It's like, that's great, but that doesn't exactly butter thine biscuit.
That is like the line that's like, we understand we fucked up and it caused an 18-month delay and more women died.
Right.
That's the apology
Oopsies.
for that.
My bad. Oopsie daisy.
Sorry.
God save the queen.
Bloody hell. Well, now it's God Save the King.
Oh, fucking let me say I'm the biggest hater.
Yeah, King Charles is not great. So anyway, so that is the Yorkshire Ripper hoax.
Oh my God. I can't believe I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I know the Yorkshire Ripper.
I followed your lead, decided to go with a bigger case.
That was a good one.
But like the hoax aspect of that to me and the fact that they were just like, you know, we never figured out who this guy was. Let's see if we can like figure it out.
Right.
And they still arrested him and he still went to jail for the hoax.
Which is great. I hate when it's like that's what I was worried because I didn't know the outcome of this. I was worried that it was going to be okay, legal friend. What's like it's too long after the crime.
Oh, statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Yeah. That's the bitch. I thought that it was going to be like something like that. And they were like, well, he did that, but it's been too long.
Well, and I don't know.
I don't know if they have that in England.
They do have statute of limitations. Some of them differ quite a lot from ours.
Right.
And even ours are getting, I want to say better. I want to say like
they're evolving, though.
They're evolving. Yeah,
okay.
They're definitely evolving. I don't know that something like perverting the course of justice has a statute of limitation.
That's true. I know some things don't.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Because there are things like there's a lot of fraud that does.
Right.
When you're talking about like sexual assault and stuff like that, those are getting extended or eliminated.
Good.
Now it kind of goes state by state.
Good.
But yeah, I don't know if perverting the course of justice does or not because it really like throws
and I feel like he'd
the
still,
investigation.
He probably like the severity of this. He probably still would have gotten into like some trouble. But that's what I was like worried about. I'm like, I really hope that he gets like punished in some way.
Yeah. But I mean, clearly like he was an alcoholic and was like drinking himself to death anyway. So like.
Good. Fuck your liver.
Yeah, anyway. So before you try to be a hoaxster, why don't you check out this podcast?
Hello, this is Margot D of the Not Fade Away podcast. This is the show that talks about folks from the music world who are no longer with us. We're talking about singers, musicians, songwriters, composers. If they made a mark on the world of music, we will talk about them. Past and future episodes include Jim Morrison, Aaliyah, John Belushi, Kurt Cobain, Tupac, and Jerry Garcia. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts under the name Not Fade Away Podcast, and follow us on all of our social media channels as well under Not Fade Away Podcast. And if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, send an email to notfadeawaypodcast@gmail.com. Hope you check us out. Thanks so much.
Rachel, that has been our show.
It sure has.
We're done.
We're done.
So excited for the nap I'm going to take later.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm so excited to go home and take care of my children.
Before we go, do you have any final thoughts?
Don't hoax people.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to bring up during the newsroom. Have you seen Anna Delvey in court?
Yes.
She looks fantastic.
Homegirl is a criminal, Rachel.
Okay, but like she's literally
She's the most stylish criminal I've ever seen in my life.
It's so funny. She bedazzled her ankle bracelet.
I mean, you have to make
that
it
is
match.
hysterical. And she she's now coming to court with this gorgeous like designer pea coat or whatever. I don't know, designers that has a big red A on it, like scarlet letter.
Oh my God.
Okay.
That's excessive.
I haven't looked into that case a lot. I know like the bare bones of it.
You should.
But
you
like
should.
Objectively, that's funny.
It's wild.
She slays kind
Her
of.
whole thing. She's a criminal. She's a criminal. I'm never going to endorse criminals.
Oh, no, I'm not endorsing her. And I'm saying I don't really know.
You should. You would love that case.
I'm
It's
sure I
very
would.
Eat the Rich in,
love
in a
it.
lot of ways.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's kind of why she's so popular. Is
Yeah.
Yes, it is also for the style, but it's like the people she scammed were fucking socialites.
Yeah.
So it's very
That's
Eat
kind
the
of
Rich
the
in that
impression
kind
I
of
have.
way.
That's why I'm, being a little light on Miss Delby. But
Anyway.
I will say that is iconic behavior.
Yes, I
Love that.
agree. On that note, our,
thought it fit in.
our sound and editing is by Tiff Weech. Our music, by Tiff Fullman. I haven't called her Tiff Weech in a while.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Who's that lady? She
Weird.
got married.
Well, not recently. We were just talking about
A
this.
long
Anyway,
time ago.
our sound and editing is by Tiff Fullman. Our music is by Jason Zakshevsky, The Enigma. This has been the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks. Adios.
Women have left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.